Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Wild Chat Facts. Today's episode is going to be all about turtles. Mara, how you doing today?
Super good. I gotta say, I love turtles. I am very excited to learn more about them and to realize why they're so amazing. So, one of
Okay.
the first things that I want to start talking about is why turtles are so amazing. And that's because they actually patrol the area. They're great scavengers. So, they eat up dead fish from lakes, rivers, and oceans. So, they're like the greatest garbage patrolling area, and they do a lot for the ocean because they also provide homes for different critters, especially when the turtles are land turtles, so it will be tortoises. So I know we're talking about turtles, but tortoises also do so much, so all of them as a whole. And when they have burrows, they can help bobcats, rabbits, even owls. So turtles and tortoises are just incredible.
See, so that was the interesting thing because I wanted to split and do kind of a separate tortoise video. And then I'm running through my facts, and it's like all tortoises are turtles, but not all turtles are tortoises. So
Yes.
technically, we can talk about tortoises as much as we want, and it would still fall into the turtle category.
That's
But
exactly why I got confused too until, yeah, so thank you. I'm glad you specified it.
yeah, and then you were talking about how they're scavengers and stuff. I guess I might as well start off with the fact that they actually have used snapping turtles, police officers have and detectives to find missing bodies in lakes and bodies of water because they're carrion animals. So they actually eat dead other animals. So they actually have been led to bodies within lakes by these turtles that were hunting for food. So they actually use that ability that they have to help with police work.
That is incredible.
Mhm.
Now, when you talk about how strong they are and how incredible they are, actually, Christopher Columbus, in his findings, he was saying that in the Caribbean, there's so many turtles that when they arrived and they were in their boat, but they were near the shore, they were kept awake by the sound of turtles banging against the hulls of the ship.
Mm-hmm. I have a
So
hard
they
time
saw
sleeping.
mermaids. They were hunted at night. I mean, the new world for them must have been so
Yes.
scary.
Yeah, they thought the manatees were mermaids and all that fun stuff. I mean, I have a hard time sleeping on a boat just hearing the waves lapping against the boat if you're close enough to shore. So hearing like the constant kadunk kadunk wood against shell would, yeah, I would not be able to sleep either. Um, but before baby sea turtles are even born, they're actually able to communicate like egg to egg, still within their shells, which I think is just super awesome. I try not to do too many sea turtles because I'm like that could be another like video on its own. There are a lot of really cool sea turtle facts out there. So in mine, these are going to be a little more turtle heavy, less tortoise and less sea turtle, but I threw in a couple. I threw in a couple.
I mixed mine because I tried to go as general, but yet again, my next fact is gonna be about sea creatures. Now let me
Okay.
skip down. No. Let's go back with male painted turtles. In a couple of videos ago, one of the podcasts, you actually showed a video where the turtle was kind of fluttering their fingers like this
Mm-hmm.
to the other turtle, and they were just kind of and then went back and then did it again.
No, it was a
Well, there
fish.
is ah,
It was a fish. It was in the video like Friends Fails. It was a turtle trying to make friends with a goldfish, and he kept putting his hands out there, and the fish was like ignoring him. Like, no, dude, I'm not interested. Yeah, that was in Animal Friendship Attempt Fails or something like that. That was
well, I
cool.
was watching a video where the turtle was doing it to a turtle, so I'm glad
Okay.
you reminded me. But there is actually a reason why they do that. The reason why they do that is they actually use their claws to tickle females in the neck to attract them. It's like you're my mate, like
It's
hi,
flirting.
like it's just
Yeah.
a cutesy way
Hmm.
of flirting, I guess.
Okay.
No
Well,
wonder the fish was like, no, thank you.
yes. Like, no, this ain't gonna work out. I'm sorry. He was trying to make friends and failed. It was just a different friendship he was looking for. Um, I'm gonna steal the mythology one, guys, before Maria gets to it. She likes to steal
Ah.
mythology ones. I'm sure she found this one, but in ancient Hindu mythology, the Earth is actually held in place by 8 gigantic elephants. All of those elephants are balanced on the back of a turtle, which itself stands on the coils of a snake. So, world, 8 elephants, turtle, coiled snake. And if any of these animals shift or move, that's when earthquakes occur. I figure they're just maybe that's why there's like thousands of earthquakes every day. Because I don't see how like a coiled snake with a turtle on top with 8 elephants and then the world would not constantly be moving.
So the snake is at the bottom holding the elephants?
Yes, the coiled snake is at the very bottom holding the turtle, and then 8 elephants are standing on the turtle, and then the world is on top of the 8 elephants.
Well, at least the 8 elephants have balance between them. Anyway, how fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually about 45 million years ago, so I think way after the Hindus came up with their theory of animal balancing act, 45 million years ago, there was actually turtles in the Antarctica, which is the southern hemisphere, because that was actually, according to this, a rainforest. So they've been discovering evidence that, and again, the world has shifted. So we can't think it was always frozen. It has shifted enough. So Antarctica was a rainforest and turtles were there.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So sea turtles became sea turtles essentially because the dinosaurs kicked them out. So basically, most turtles were on land, and they're not the fastest moving creatures, and they've been around forever. So they started to move towards the water because the land dinosaurs basically kicked them out. But then I'm sure once they got to the water, they found the rude awakening of all the mosasaurs and all of the water-based gigantic creatures. But the theory goes that all the turtles were on land and then inevitably were pushed to the sea because of the dinosaurs' presence.
Wow. But if it really wasn't for turtles in the ocean, we wouldn't have the amazing balanced ecosystems, because like there's a there is a turtle that actually eats different sponges. And if it wasn't for that balancing act that they do in the ocean, nutrients from when they go out and lay their eggs, they actually nourish a ton of animals, because not all the eggs hatch. And the ones that don't hatch, or the shells of the ones who did, they actually also nourish animals. And a lot of, it's just amazing all the stuff that they do, and they don't have, they're just naturally being themselves, and they're doing a great job.
There's a ton of nutrition in shells too. It's coming in the future, one of our funny video clips. But basically, when snails are born, they have really soft shells, and they eat their entire egg. And that the nutrients in the egg and the calcium's actually what solidifies the shell on their back.
Wow.
So basically, they're recycling immediately. But yeah, shells, if they weren't so crunchy in eggs, it'd probably be healthy to throw them in there. But I'm not.
You actually could throw it on your dog's food. You have to.
That's true.
You have to. What I've done is I will bake them. Smells horrendous, but you bake them and then you crush them in the blender, so it's powdery. Tons of calcium in it. Make sure they're washed. So speaking of the shells, even though it seems like the shells of a turtle is like the ultimate protective shield, the shells are actually, and you talked about this in another video, the shells are actually, they have nerve endings. So they could perceive, just like if you touch your nails, you could perceive sensations of pressure. So if they get injured, just like ours with our nails, they will feel the pain.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know if this goes for all turtles, because I know different turtles make different sounds. But one of the interesting facts I came across was if you want to tell the difference between a male turtle and a female turtle, you don't have to look. You can actually just listen, because male turtles grunt and female turtles hiss, apparently. Now, I don't know if that's all turtle species. Don't quote me on that part, but that is one option of differentiating them.
That also reminds me when we did the video about ducks, how female ducks start right away chatting and the boys don't. So that was also a way to differentiate.
Yes.
So if you want to have a safe place for turtles, unfortunately, our civilization has grown so fast that in some areas we're starting to become very aware of the needs of the different animals. So there are actually Japanese railways. They have started to install shallow tunnels under the rail tracks. So bunnies, turtles, and small animals can just cross safely under.
Yeah. And when they're little ones, it's easy because you're not messing with the stability of the tracks and the stuff, up above, and you don't have to build like a giant wildlife pass through. So it is much easier to do the little ones. Okay, let's see. I'm sure you probably have seen the thumbnails out there of like all the what you're doing is you're looking in a leatherback sea turtle's throat, and it's got all these spikes and spines that come out, and that's the part that's like catches everybody's attention. And I was always kind of curious what they were for. And really, it turns out because part of their diet is jellyfish, that all those spikes and spines they're not really meant for chewing. It kind of shreds the jellyfish as it goes down the turtle's throat. So it doesn't. It looks like it's kind of a chewing apparatus, but it's really not. It's more of a setup to shred jellyfish. And they're immune to jellyfish stings. So that's kind of one of the benefits that they have in it being able to eat them. So they could eat like Portuguese man o' war and other jellyfish that most other animals cannot approach without getting harmed. But the jellyfish do get their revenge in the end, because when they eat the jellyfish, it actually produces a smell that attracts sharks. So yes, you can eat them without getting stung, and it is nutrition, but then you're going to attract sharks. So dilemmas.
I actually had that fact and I found it to be so fascinating because that throat looks like an alien from movies. Like,
Yes.
I'm sure that's where they got the inspiration for several alien movies. But speaking of amazing qualities, one of the coolest things I found is that some turtles, they actually were observing turtles and they realized that some of them actually pee from their mouths and some of them can breathe from their rear.
Uh-huh.
So the turtle, what happens is the colon of the turtles can be used for respiration because it takes because they can stay underwater so long, they literally fill their colon with oxygen. So if you
Mhm.
go to Australia, you can go to the Fitzroy River turtle or the Mary River, and they can breathe through their backs. And the Chinese soft shell is the one that they were noticing. The National University of Singapore was noticing that the turtles will stick their heads and puddles of water will come out, and then they wiggle their tongues, but they were not drinking.
Okay.
So they realized that as a safety mechanism, they started just ejecting water that way and
Okay.
then going and submerging themselves. So
Gotcha.
fascinating.
Yes, when our digestive system works in the opposite order, it's painful and disgusting. For them, it's just a normal function. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I thought this was adorable. There's actually butterflies in the Amazon that drink turtles' tears in order to receive the mineral sodium and stuff that they need as part of their diet. So, and we've talked about this before. There's a lot of animals that get a benefit from other animals that just look weird when you see it. Because they do the same thing with crocodiles. You'll have birds and stuff that land and drink crocodile tears for exactly that reason.
That is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you if you want to know the age of a turtle, there is a myth around that says that you just can tell the age by the rings on the scutes of its shell. So the little
Mm-hmm.
scutes of the shell. But that's actually not true. They accumulate growth rings, but it doesn't necessarily talk about their age. They just accumulate, they don't accumulate rings every year. They just do it by how they grow spurs. So it's not an annual growth spur. It could be just if they
Yeah.
eat a lot of food, if there is abundance or scarcity, then they can actually have growth spurs based on that. So
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because there's other ridges in between that we just can't see very well because they're thin lines and stuff. Maybe it'd be interesting to kind of break down. All right. So I stole the mythology fact. I'm also going to steal the Colombian turtle fact. Also.
No.
You want to share that one more? You can
Go
have it if
for
you
it.
want. Go ahead.
I have to find it, so it's faster for you to
Okay.
do it.
Okay. So basically, dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago, just for a point of reference for everybody. And about 5 million years later, a turtle evolved in about 60 million years ago. A turtle evolved in Colombia that was the size of a car and could actually eat crocodiles. So there's a lot of species that developed very nicely once the dinosaurs were gone and you had that threat removed. Like
And that was
mammals.
only about 10 years ago. That was literally only about 10 years that they found those remains in under in a coal mine. So it was just, this is amazing how much stuff we're still discovering. About the size of a smart car. Yeah. Wow. But I do have to talk about the oldest tortoises. Tortoises tend to live longer. If you think of the Galapagos Islands, and there are a lot of species that are super
Mhm.
large. So they're like the mega turtles,
Mhm.
not the size of a smart car, but really, really large. And one of the oldest turtles was a gift to a royal family in Tonga by the British explorer Captain Hook in 1777.
Okay.
And it grew up for over 188 years until it finally passed away from natural causes. And there are several turtles, even in the Australian zoo, that was part of Charles Darwin, have been a pet of Charles Darwin that lived for another couple hundred years, and that they're just some turtles that we don't even know how long they've been living, but they have been in captivity at least for 180 years, and yet they were already known. So turtles
Well, there
don't live forever, but they can live extremely long.
there was a turtle we were talking about in a previous video, and don't if I get it wrong, I apologize because the fact's not in front of me. But I think it said that like Charles Darwin's pet turtle was actually given to Steve Irwin. Like that's how long the turtle lived. So the span between those two individuals' lives was obviously
Yep, he ended up in the land down under, is what he said.
So yeah, it actually became Steve Irwin basically adopted Charles
Yeah.
Darwin's turtle. So I'll tell you. But here's some fun. And since we just talked about turtles and their age and such, when Sylvester Stallone shot the movie Rocky in 1976, he actually absconded with the two turtles from the movie. It's pretty typical. A lot of actors take like wardrobe and stuff with them and things like that from movies. Well, Stallone took the two turtles, and their names were Cuff and Link. So Cufflink were the turtles' names. And in 2006, they filmed Rocky Balboa, and they had two turtles show up in that movie also. Same turtles, they got to make their their movie appearance yet again 30 years later in the
I wonder
Rocky.
if they got paid.
I don't think they get paid. No, the animal handlers get paid for the animals on set for movies, but
You actually would be surprised if animals do get paid.
I know because the
I
dog
mean,
in Toto got paid more than the Munchkins, and everybody found that just absolutely appalling. So the dog got paid, and again, I don't think the dog got paid. I think the dog's handler got paid. But you're right. You hear all those stories of people like passing on and leaving their fortunes to their pets and stuff. So there are dogs out there with much more loot than you and I, unfortunately.
well, good for them. Hopefully, they're well cared for. Somebody's enjoying taking care of them.
Right.
So we need to talk about dangerous turtles. You will never ever imagine that there are actually several dangerous turtles, and
Yes.
one of them is called the mata mata. Coming all the way from South America, meet the Amazon infamous and sometimes disturbing creature, and they share the river with piranhas and of course dolphins, because we're talking about the Amazon. And here's why it makes it so dangerous: because if you step on it, the neck is so long, much longer than you think, almost like a snake. And it also has plates with teeth, like human fused teeth, just several sharp plates that you can lose a foot. They're extraordinary carnivores. They will hunt fish and other reptiles. And yeah, the matamata moves very slowly, so algae actually grows in the back, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's not easy to mistake, although it could be mistaken by a rock. But anyway, just be careful because the necks are super long, and you can definitely get a chump out of it.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see what else. I had found one extra little bit about them too. The algae that grows on their shells. It basically sucks in large fish. They gulp them down essentially. They don't chew them. They just basically inhale them. So if they can do that to a fish, imagine what they can do to your foot.
And not only that, but people say that they can't even record it. It moves that fast. They're so
Yeah,
fast
that was
that
the irony. They're very slow moving turtles, like a sloth, and they grow algae because they're so slow moving. Yet their reflexes are more like the mantis shrimp that we had showed in the previous videos when we were covering that really fast snap attack that like when they go after you, you can't even see the movement. Yep. No, you talked about this on Undiscovered Worlds and some of the animals found frozen videos when you were talking about the wood frogs and stuff. There are certain animals out there that can actually survive in ice and wintry conditions, and they don't survive by like hibernating. They actually basically put themselves into a stasis, and within their blood and stuff, there's kind of a coolant in there. It's not actually coolant, but it functions as a coolant that allows their tissues to survive and not crystallize. Well, there's turtles that can do that too. I did not know that. So there's turtles that actually can survive the same exact way. And then when everything starts to thaw and it warms up, they thaw out and they just go on their merry little way like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, that's why you see a lot of map turtles and many turtles actually in Michigan, and they survive beautifully. It's amazing.
Mm.
I have a question for you. How
Okay.
would you call
What would you call?
huh?
What would you call?
What would you call
Yeah.
a I know with reptiles like a crocodile we call them, or alligator we call them a congregation. But what would be the proper name of a community of turtles? Can you take a guess?
Pucks. They're called like hockey pucks. If you don't have anything else around, no, they're not called pucks. They slide well. I've seen it in cartoons. They just roll up in their ship. They slide across. They have fun. I'm telling you, they enjoy it. I've never done this before, people. I'm just joking because I don't know the answer. Maria, what is the answer of a group?
They're actually called bale, which sounds like a bale of hay, but it's just a bale of turtles. However, it is not common for people who have turtles to have to refer to them collectively as bale. They mostly refer to them collectively as a herd. So it's not a herd, it's a bale.
Slow moving bale of turtles. Okay. All right. So we talked about this in another video. I don't remember what video it was, but they used to believe that birds actually like hibernated or took their winters on like the moon and underwater until they found one with an arrow in it. And they knew the arrow was from Africa, so people in Europe finally realized that birds migrated. And that's how they figured that out. Well, they kind of did the same thing with alligator snapping turtles and their age. They have found that alligator snapping turtles can live for over 150 years. Now, guys, that's double our age for the most part. So it's really hard to age these things when it's like you got to tell your grandkid to keep an eye on the turtle and figure out when it finally kicks off, and then you know how old they can be. It doesn't work as well. But in this case, scientists actually know because they found musket balls in the stomach of the alligator snapping turtles, and we've talked about how they'll eat just about anything. And musket balls can be left over and they could have been found, but there's still a certain kind of time period window that musket balls were a thing. So they've determined by that in its stomach that they can live to be at least 150 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually, the snapping turtles is considered one of the most dangerous turtles also in North America. And their necks are also long, but not as long as the mata mata, but they're incredible. They look fierce. Like when you look at a snapping turtle, they look like mean with their pointy nose, and you just wow, and that tail, and they can whip you with it. Yeah. Very, very cool. Now, what is amazing about some species of turtles, not all turtles, but some species of turtles, they don't have like a chromosome that tells male or female. Like we humans, we get that from that and Y or X. They don't have that. They actually are temperature gendered. So like determines their egg will be developed into a male or a female. So lower temperatures lead to males and higher temperatures lead to females. Here's the bigger problem. It's hard for turtles to mate. They're solitary animals. And when there are too many females, yeah, you will think it will be great population, but there also need to be a lot of males. And because all those eggs, like in some statistics, like 1 in every 1,000 hatchlings will actually become an adult, we need to have a better balance of male and female. So there are many organizations in Florida who have been working on balancing the genders in order to have, because we have had a lot of hot springs and summers. So when those eggs are in incubation is being really, really hot. These last couple of months has been very hot, more than usual. So
Yeah,
there are a
it's
lot of
been
good organizations working on that.
yeah, it's been a problem for alligators and crocodiles, and also they basically a lot of reptiles. That's how their the sex determination is for reptiles. So you're having that same problem with a lot of reptile species.
Yep.
All right, let's see. Turtles often bury their eggs in alligator nests because alligators are such good guards that the turtles can kind of cheat and just throw them in there and then just let them be.
Yeah, because alligators are such good parents, and turtles tend to be less uh, of parental. They literally just lay their eggs and leave.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that they do that.
Yeah.
But there was the largest cleanup. This is amazing. This is one of the reasons why, guys, if you go to the beach, just grab an extra bag. And if you're going to go for a walk, just throw trash in the bag. Just make sure you collect stuff. Some of the bags look like jellyfish, so the turtles will eat them. And the straws, you will think, oh, straws don't do much. Well, when the waves are moving really fast, they turn into projectiles. So many animals end up with them stuck like in their noses and things like that. But one of the coolest things that happened that humanity has started to do well is in Mumbai, in Versova Beach. The olive ridley turtles returned to lay eggs for the first time in over 20 years after they did a cleanup. And guys, how satisfying is that to see that all that effort of all the trash that we pick up can really help?
Yeah. We talked about in the dolphin video how they were starting to cut holes in the bottom of the fishing nets and stuff like that because the fish that they were catching won't swim directly down. And then we discussed how it's great that they're starting to do a little bit of research these days to figure out how do we get the things we want and then not catch the things that we don't want. And I found another really good example of that with turtles. They found out that if they attach green LED lights to the nets used by small-scale fishermen, that it reduced the number of green sea turtle deaths by about 64% without affecting the number of fish that they caught at all. So again, there's those little things as we start to study the animals, we can figure out, oh, they don't like green flashing lights, but the fish don't care. Perfect. Let's do that. Let's cut a hole in the bottom of the net. There's a lot of stuff that they're finally starting to kind of open up their eyes to, or ideas, or thinking outside of the box. And sometimes it's these organizations that Maria's talking about. They do the research and then they kind of implement it to test it. And then once it's proven, then some of these smaller fishermen or even the larger commercial fishermen are willing to then take it on. They just aren't willing to spend the money or take the time to do the research themselves. But if you give them a tool, they'll use it as long as it didn't cost them any time or money.
I have one last fact that I want to share with you. And this is a hack. So if you want to safely find your turtle, if you want to take your turtle for a walk and you safely want to find a turtle because they'll burrow, your tortoise, I mean, what you can do is you actually can tie a helium balloon so that you can actually track them while you take them out for a walk in the park.
Yes, which would be the slowest walk you've ever taken in your life if you take your turtles for a walk in the park.
Yeah, but that's the problem is you start talking to someone and all of a sudden you lose that actually happened to me as a kid.
Yeah.
I had a couple of little tiny turtles, map turtles, and I took them outside to the garden and I couldn't find them.
So I thought this one was interesting. If you guys always wonder how writers become great writers. Well, George R.R. Martin, yes, Game of Thrones. Maria watches every episode. Okay, she's only ever seen one episode. But George R.R. Martin actually used to write stories about a kingdom inhabited by his pet turtles. That's how he started getting his creative juices going. And then the twist, of course, because it's George R.R. Martin, they would actually kill each other in sinister plots against one another. They would not actually kill each other, but in his brain, when he's making up this story for this kingdom inhabited by his turtles, he actually threw in sinister plots as a child, which probably developed all of his Game of Thrones writing skills he has now. But guys, we are going to call it right there. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Click the subscribe button if you haven't already. Helps get the content out there. And if you guys are listening to us on a podcast, write a review for us. We really appreciate it. We like to hear how things are going on that end. Do you guys have any more fun turtle facts, tortoise facts, sea turtle facts that you want to share with us? There's going to be a community tab on YouTube, and there's always the conversations on Patreon. Free section of Patreon. You guys don't have to pay or subscribe for anything over there. Join in on all the conversations. It's fantastic. For all of the paid Patreon members, we are going to start the bonus after show now. So we'll see you over there in about 20 seconds. Mar, see you in a minute.
See you in a minute.